Do you ever feel like your golf skills just vanish? One moment you're executing perfect shots, and suddenly it's like someone replaced your clubs with pool noodles. You've practiced countless hours, you know your swing, you know your technique, and then inexplicably, for a hole or two, you're a stranger to yourself. What if there's a precise scientific explanation for why skills disappear? What if your brain is actually hijacking your performance and you can learn to take back control? Before we go any further, I want you to answer three questions. Have you ever played a round where you felt off but couldn't explain why? Do you sometimes make decisions on the course that looking back make zero sense? Have you ever sabotaged your own performance without understanding how? If you answered yes to any of these, you're experiencing ego interference, whether you recognize it or not. I'm Drew Hopper, and in my 33 years of competitive athletics, from wrestling, judo, golf, elite military units, I've witnessed this phenomenon countless times. Skilled performers suddenly unable to access their capabilities. Today we're going to decode the neuroscience behind this performance mystery. Picture this. You're a skilled golfer. You've invested thousands of hours perfecting your technique. Your swing mechanics are solid. Your strategic understanding is sharp. You've done everything right from a physical, technical, and strategic perspective. Then you step onto the first tee of an important round and suddenly you can't hit the broadside of a barn. This isn't about lack of skill, it's about neurological interference. Before we explore the neurological mechanisms, let's understand why your ego becomes so involved in your golf performance. It's not about being arrogant, it's about how your brain is constantly trying to protect you, even when that protection undermines your actual performance. So, why does the ego enter the performance arena? First category, we'll call it social comparison. Sometimes you would call this consciously. I think I can say I'm guilty of this. You're consciously or even unconsciously ranking against playing partners. How are you doing against your playing partners? There's a fear of looking incompetent. That's another one. And then there's a perceived performance is tied to perceived social status, right? So do I fit into the group? If I don't perform well, I don't fit in, as an example, that kind of line of thinking. And then identity protection, this is another category. So your golf scores become a reflection of your self-worth. Bad shots feel like personal failure. A lot of these, man, I honestly, as I read these and I discuss these with you, they hit home for me as well. Our brain shifts from skill execution to emotional defense. Next category, expectation management. Um, we have certain internal standards and self expectations, and sometimes when those expectations aren't met, it triggers the ego to be involved. Pressure from personal history or past performances. I've shot a 68 at this course. I should shoot a 68 again, right? That kind of thinking. Anticipatory anxiety about potential poor outcomes, the what ifs, right? You're becoming a fortune teller. You're thinking into the future. Next one here is a category we'll call survival mechanism. Our primitive brain is interrupting performance as a potential threat. You feel unsafe, right? You're on a stage, you've got a big shot, people are watching. There's a million scenarios that could make you feel unsafe, and our primitive brain then gets involved. Cortisol, so now we're talking hormones, big category. Cortisol, adrenaline surge when performance deviates from expected outcome. And these hormones have lasting power, right? If you research how long a cortisol or adrenaline surge can stay in your system and affect play, as an example. Not only play, but obviously your thinking, your mechanics, etc. And then you shift from rational skill execution to emotional protection mode, right? You're more concerned about protecting your emotions than you are from the standpoint of being an athlete and executing what's in front of you. So closing thought here is your ego isn't trying to sabotage you. It's actually trying to protect you from what it perceives as potential social or personal harm. All right, let's talk about the scientific mechanism behind this. It's important, I think, to understand that. So our prefrontal cortex resource depletion. So that's the first concept we're going to talk about, prefrontal cortex resource depletion. So your brain's executive control center, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making, emotional regulation, impulse control, and performance planning. So let's talk about a study from Baumeister called ego depletion. This research, which supports this concept, demonstrates that we have a finite mental energy reservoir. Um, Also, that ego-driven tasks, so those things we just talked about a moment ago, the examples we just talked about a moment ago, ego-driven tasks drain cognitive resources. Performance deteriorates with increased mental load. These are the key takeaways from the study. Again, finite mental energy reservoir, ego-driven tasks drain cognitive resources. Our performance deteriorates with increased mental load. And working memory capacity reduces by 15 to 25% under ego stress. So how does this affect our impact on the golf course? Reduced attention control, impaired motor skill coordination, decreased adaptability, and increased stress response susceptibility. So think about those, like, and process how those could impact you over the course of, say, 4.5 hours. Next concept here, hormonal performance interference cascade. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, the cortisol surge. This triggers sympathetic nervous system activation. It will then, as a counter response, reduce testosterone by 10 to 15%. It also decreases dopamine availability by 20 to 30%. We know how important dopamine is in terms of focus, motivation, a lot of important variables that dopamine influences, and impairs acetylcholine neurotransmission. So what's the physical reality then again? How does this affect play? When cortisol floods your system, it literally blocks access to the parts of your brain that control balance and rhythm, tempo and timing, and spatial awareness. Next section here, skill expression disruption. So neurological interference pathways, your amygdala threat response activation, your prefrontal cortex resource redirection, and then automated skill pattern interrupted. And that's mostly what golf is, if you think about it, automated skill patterns. And motor skill precision is reduced between 22 to 37%. Another study that demonstrates that is Baumeister and Showers from 1986. So when you stack up all these elements, I think we could call this the golfer's nightmare realized, right? Has anyone ever felt completely helpless on the golf course? Like you weren't yourself. It's the strangest thing, and it's really frustrating because you work so hard to develop these skills, and then all of a sudden they're gone in a blink, and in the moment you really can't figure out why. This isn't a character flaw. It's neuroscience. Your brain is physically preventing you from accessing the skills you've worked so hard to develop. Let's talk about then the solution. The good news is once you understand what's happening in your brain, you can engineer a way out of it. This is where we build your mental fortress. So we use a protocol called BRAVR, and I'm going to walk you through each of those steps and the science that supports, or at least some of the science that supports. We don't have time to go through all the science, but some highlights, if you will. So the B in BRAVR starts with baseline, and that's a neurological reset protocol. And we use breathing as the tool, the primary tool. So there's a couple different breathing options. They're all attempting to accomplish the same thing, which is parasympathetic nervous system activation. And there's a study, Giraffe 2015, I'll throw that up on the screen, that supports this. And so we can use a 4-7-8 breathing technique, which activates the vagus nerve. Box breathing, also the 4-4-4-4. Navy SEALs use that, and Dr. Huberman has recently been speaking to another technique in which you do, you know, actually, if you listen to dogs, you'll hear dogs do this quite a bit, or kids do it when they're young. An inhale, and so it's a double inhale. So you're going to do kind of an inhale to where you would have a natural stopping point, and then another inhale to really fill, and then an extended exhale to complete the cycle. And you would do that, you know, as many times as you would need to. And the breathing techniques essentially will then reduce your cortisol by 23% within 3 minutes. It restores your prefrontal cortex resource allocation. And so again, you're shifting how your brain is actually working. The hormones then are influencing that, and it interrupts the amygdala threat response. And so what's the performance impact with this? It directly addresses the prefrontal cortex resource depletion, which we just talked about a moment ago, by recalibrating your neurological baseline. So that's B, and that means baseline. And again, we use whatever the client's most preferred breathing technique is in order to accomplish that step. Next is reset, and this is about clearing cognitive interference. In terms of scientific foundation, Sweller published a study in 1988 about cognitive load theory and attention restoration that supports this step. So the mechanism here is, again, about pattern interruption techniques, sympathetic nervous system downregulation, working memory clearance, and attention refocus. And so this step specifically resets or breaks the hormonal cascade and restores cognitive bandwidth for skill execution. And so a couple of things that we're going to do here is get external, and so get out of our own head. And so we're going to use grounding techniques where we're leveraging our five senses as an example, and really trying to accept our circumstances. Often in this area, you're feeling unsafe because you're not where you plan to be, right? And that's perfectly normal. However, we need to get back to full capacity. And so we need to really focus on acceptance in this moment, while we're going through this reset step and going external and grounding and really using our senses. Next would be affirm, and this step is about performance identity reconstruction. As far as scientific foundation, Dweck 2006. There's a study titled Neuroplasticity and Belief System Modification that supports this step of the process. So the mechanism is synaptic pruning of limiting beliefs, positive neural pathway reinforcement, performance identity strengthening, and confidence restoration. And so the performance impact on this step is it builds a neurological foundation for skill expression by eliminating ego-driven interference patterns. So an example of what an affirmation might sound like is it could be broad, where you're walking to the green and you've just hit a good shot and you're telling yourself that you're a world-class putter. I am a world-class putter. It's kind of a broad, simple way to think about it, or it can be much more specific. Let's say that you're within a pre-shot routine and you're leveraging this. It could be something more specific like, I am capable of hitting a 515 cut 5-iron to a back right pin position. So those are a couple of examples of A for affirm, our third step. Our fourth step is V for visualize. This is about skill expression rehearsal. In terms of scientific foundation, I'll throw a study up there from 1999. This study is titled Motor Imagery and Neural Pathway Activation. So in terms of mechanism, we're precise motor skill mental rehearsal, mirror neuron system activation, automated performance pattern reinforcement, and conscious interference bypass. And so the performance impact here is it reestablishes the neurological pathway for skill execution without ego interference. So literally we are seeing, like we're watching a movie, exactly the shot we want to execute. It's really that simple. You're going to see every little nitnoid detail like you're watching a movie in real time. Usually you would stand behind the ball and see the ball take off and fly, hit a cloud, crest on that cloud, and then dip to the right. Again, we're talking about that high 5-iron cut into the back right pin. But you want to be really specific and you want to see it, again, like you're watching a movie, and that positive input will do what I just mentioned, but also think about it, positive inputs, positive outputs, specific, precise instructions here. And then our final step is R for ready. And this is about performance state activation. The science that supports this study was published in 1990, Flow State, Neuroscience, and Optimal Arousal Theory. I'll throw that up on the screen as well. So let's talk about the mechanisms here. Performance trigger development, optimal arousal state calibration, neurological to physical bridge activation, and skill expression optimization. So how does this impact performance? This creates immediate access to your technical capabilities in a neurologically optimized state. And so this is our final step, and usually this is a word or phrase that's going to cause a positive emotional response and is also going to result in full commitment on the part of the athlete. Let's summarize what we've discovered. Your golf skills haven't disappeared. They've been neurologically hijacked. The ego creates a cascade of brain chemistry changes that literally prevent you from accessing the abilities you've worked so hard to develop. But now you have the blueprint. The BRAVR framework isn't just a mental technique. It's a neurological engineering system that systematically dismantles ego interference and restores your skill expression capacity. Imagine stepping onto every tee, knowing that regardless of the pressure, regardless of the stakes, you have a reliable system to access your true capabilities. That's not wishful thinking, that's applied neuroscience. So what are your takeaways? Recognize the signs. When you feel skills disappearing, understand it's neurological interference, not skill loss. Implement BRAVR daily, 10 minutes a day. If maybe you're chipping, you're putting, maybe you're in a boardroom meeting and it gets stressful, you can use it in any high stress moment. Develop performance triggers. Create reliable cues that activate your optimized state. Find what works for you. For me, I play Aerosmith Dream On and I'm locked in. Engineer your performance. Treat your mental game as systematically as you do your swing mechanics or the technical side of your game. Prioritize mental preparation equally with your technical skills. If your mental game becomes as important as your technical game, you'll be pleasantly surprised by how much you'll be enjoying playing and how much your scores will improve. Performance is not a random occurrence. It's an engineered state. You've already done the hard work of developing your skills. Now it's time to engineer the neurological environment that allows those skills to shine. The question isn't whether you have the ability. You've already proven that time and time again. The question is, are you ready to take control of the neurological interference that's been holding you back? Your skills are waiting. Your mental fortress is the key to unlocking them.